Hey everybody, I'm here with Ric Plante, our bamboo maker here in the shop, as well as our kind of shop operations manager. And we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about the process of making the one-piece bamboo rod, and some of the challenges we encountered when we made it, as well as some of the thought process behind creating this really special fly rod for us. So, Ric, I guess the first thing I'd ask you is, how did you start in making the rod, and what did you find was going to be maybe harder than you thought it was going to be?
Well, like most things in the shop, when we decide to do something new, right? First thing we say is, oh yeah, sure, we'll do it. But we also know that everything we do affects everything else in the making process. So first it was like, yeah, let's make a one piece, because Tom always said the more you do to a rod, the more ferrules you add, the more you screw it up. I'll be kind. That's not Tom's words, right? So we thought, okay, we're going to make a one piece, and our 7.5 4-weight is a really popular rod in bamboo. So we chose to do that, and you go, yeah, we'll do it. And we sell an extension bed on the hand mill, but I've never used it. So that I said, sure. Then obviously I had to figure out how to do that, how to get the blend in. You're constantly changing the taper from the butt section to the tip section as you move the rod through the process. So that was the first learning curve. And then after you get to that point, you go, okay, how am I going to bind it together? Because it doesn't fit on our binder, right? And you go, okay, so we went and bought another binder that we could put on a bench, so we have room to bind a 7.5, 8-foot piece of bamboo. And then you go, okay, well, how am I going to coat it? It doesn't fit in our dip tanks, because the longest rod we make...
Everything's designed around making rods in sections.
Everything is designed about the rods that we make. It's like, okay, so now it doesn't fit in our dip tank, and it doesn't fit in our oven, so how are we going to heat treat it? We came up with flaming, and flaming makes for a beautiful rod, as you can see here. It's really nice, but it's not something that we normally do. So the first thing we say is yes, and then you go, okay, how am I going to deal with all these different issues that it takes to make the rod? And we have to hollow the rod. So everything makes a difference on the rod, including the taper that we use, right? So our taper for a 7.5 4-weight 2-piece has a ferrule in it. So now when we make a 1-piece, I had to change the taper to compensate for not having that ferrule in there, because we want all of our TMR rods to feel the same. So if that wasn't tweaked, it wouldn't feel the same as a rod that has a ferrule in it. So we say yes, and then you go, how am I going to do all these different things? One thing I left out was, how are we going to shape the handle? Because as you know, we shape handles right on the rods. We don't use pre-made handles. A 7.5-foot rod does not fit in our lathe.
Right.
So the first time we did it, we were shaping the handle, and I'm holding the end of the rod out our big door, past our lathe, and going, God, I just hope this thing doesn't whip around and kill me. So the second time...
Luckily we have working carpenters.
Yeah. So the second time we actually had to build a little extension for our lathe, so now we could put it in our lathe and shape the handle there. So yeah, it was quite the process, but I have to say it was really, really worth it.
I wonder, so I've been told it's one of the longer one-piece bamboo rods people have seen. Is that a result of the hand mill extension making it easier to make long strips? Is it harder to do that with planing forms? I don't really know what the answer is there, but...
Yeah, I have, to be honest with you, I've never made a rod on planing forms. I'm familiar with them, I know how to use them, but when I started to make bamboo, I was lucky. I'm looking on the internet, I find Tom, it's like, oh, he lives in Manhattan, and that would be 10 miles from my house. So I was able to drive out and see the hand mill in action, and since I was a machinist in what I like to say a previous life, it made sense to me. So I bought one. I think for planing forms to do this, I think you could do it. It would be hard as well, because you have to constantly be changing the taper. And you have to do that same thing on a hand mill, but it could be done, but it's a lot of work. You don't obviously, I mean, you don't hear a lot about one-piece rods because, well, how am I going to transport it, right? If you're flying on a plane, you're not going to be using this, but a lot of people now have rod boxes above their truck or their SUV or whatever, and they just put the rod in their rod box and off they go. And, you know, that's not an issue. If you're flying, that's a problem.
Right. But if you're flying private, it doesn't matter, right?
yeah. If you're flying private, do whatever the heck you want. Yeah.
So tell us, what do you think of the rod that is the resulting product from this whole process? Like, what are your thoughts about it, and how would you describe it?
And I was, man, when I made this, and I think everyone in the shop now has taken it out and fished it once. You know, we all go out, we cast it on the grass or in the parking lot to try it out at first. We deflect it and see everything. But when you go out and you fish this rod, out of all of our bamboo rods, and I'm sure it's because it doesn't have a ferrule, is the smoothest casting rod I think I have ever cast. Accuracy, I'm not the world's greatest caster, you know, I can get the fly on the water, but accuracy with this rod, how smooth it is, and then when you get a fish on it, I mean, it just, it plays the fish well, the tip is light, you know, the butt is strong enough, you know, we all like to fish, I like to fish small streams that have big fish in it, so, you know, when you get an 18, 20-inch fish in a small stream on this rod, it's just amazing. So I've thrown, you know, blue wing olives to hoppers with this rod, and it throws them all. It's, you know, it's now that I've made it, maybe I'm biased, but it is my favorite bamboo rod that we have in the shop.
Awesome, right on. What do you think was kind of one of the biggest challenges, and then what was the most rewarding thing about the process of making this rod, prototyping and finalizing it?
Well, having never made a one piece, I wasn't sure how the blend was going to happen, right? And it actually worked so well.
When you say blend,
so you have to plane the butt section, and then you have to move the whole rod like 3 feet, and then you have to plane the tip section. So you change the taper on the hand mill, and there's a 5-inch section that I use to blend the butt to the tip, the two different tapers. Right, and you compensate for that when you're planing the butt, and then you also actually move it down the hand mill when you plane the tip. And I didn't know how it was going to come out, and it came out amazing. You can't tell, I don't care how well you look, you cannot see where the butt and the tip section are blended together in the two different planings. And then again, I had no idea how smooth it was going to cast.
Yeah.
Tom always said, you know, the more you screw with the rod, the more you screw with the rod. And, you know, 2-piece is better than a 4-piece, and here a 1-piece is just amazing.
Right on. Yeah, I think it's very fair to say that we've all been pleasantly surprised by fishing it and casting it. I think it's different than other bamboo rods I've cast, and I think it goes to that point of, you know, just having the integrity of a 1-piece strip or a 1-piece blank makes a huge difference. I think for me, it's quicker than I thought it was going to be. It's more responsive than I thought it was going to be. I had an impression in my mind that a 1-piece would be kind of slower or more flexible, and I think what it's surprised me is it's much lighter and quicker than any other bamboo rod I've fished before. And the aesthetics of it turned out great. Like, we've never flamed rods before, so a lot of the production value of this was kind of us figuring out how we wanted to do it our way, and I think it turned out really, really nice.
Yeah, it really did. You know, Tom always wanted things, you know, he wanted what he called the straw color, but obviously we don't have an oven that's 8 feet long.
Right.
And you know, a lot of rod makers flame their rods, and it does make for a beautiful rod. Another thing I would comment on, you know, without having that ferrule, this is the lightest bamboo rod that we have. I mean, I think this prototype came in at 3.7 ounces, and you know, that's using nickel silver hardware. I mean, if we were to use aluminum, which we would never do, I mean, this would be 3.5 ounces, maybe 3-4. It's a really, really light rod in hand when you're casting it. And it's funny because we never want to influence someone's opinion, so they take it out and they cast it on the lawn, and they'll make a few casts. The first thing they do is they look at it and you go, holy, this is really smooth. This is a smooth rod.
Yep.
That's the first line out of, I think, everyone's mouth when they cast this rod.
Cool. Anything you want to add?
I don't think so. I mean, I would be happy if anyone had any questions about the rod. I would be happy to answer any questions that they might have, as you do as well. If, you know, we have probably 500 hand mills or more out in the world. If people have questions about how to make a one-piece rod on their hand mill, I would be happy to answer those for them as well. You know, we do sell an extension bed. We don't sell a lot of them, maybe a half dozen a year.
Might sell more now, I don't know.
Yeah, we might sell more now. I think if somebody casts this rod and they have a hand mill, they're apt to buy one. But no, it is the smoothest rod, smoothest bamboo rod, whether it's ours or anyone else's that I think I've ever cast.
Cool, great. Right on, well, thanks so much. Like Rick said, please give us a call or contact us. If you have questions about the one piece, we will be making them kind of throughout this year in a limited number. So let us know. Hopefully go quickly, we don't know, but we'll keep that updated on the website and keep you on the loop.